It's like a carrot. You've got these bills that you have to pay that you've committed to, and now you've got to go deliver for yourself to be able to have enough to live a great lifestyle still and to be able to make those payments.
This is the Just Real Quick podcast, where we discuss how to succeed in the world of sales through confidence, discipline, and consistency. Are you ready to be intentional about creating more opportunities that lead to sales? Tune into this episode right now for the latest insights and strategies that will take your sales game to the next level. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Jefferson Rogers here in the studio with my guy, Ramiro, one of our top coordinators here at JKR Windows. Been around just a little over 2 years. We're going to highlight this young man today for all the success that he's had, his consistency, and get to hear from him about what it takes to be one of the top coordinators in JKR Windows or in sales in general when it comes to mindset and your consistency and your strategy. So welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Having a fantastic month this month, I see.
It's pretty good for so far. I've had better months, but
just this last week you started turning it up though. You were out on a pod.
Yeah.
And we've got a really unique kind of pay structure where you've got an opportunity to tier up in the percentage that you can make. And you took extreme advantage of that in this last week from what I understand.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How much revenue did you do in that week?
I know before the trip I was at like 30K, hopefully almost 40, and then I got up to 140. So I'm about 100K.
About 100K
for the week. So
that you'll in 1 week get paid at the top tier of our commission structure.
So that's gonna be about maybe 10,000, somewhere around that.
10,000 in a week. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And that wasn't something that you were familiar with before you started at JKR Windows with that level of opportunity.
No, not at all.
Right? Because when we met, you had never done sales before. You were really quiet and timid, but you were also driven. Like you had your notes out all the time. You wanted to do something special, but I'm curious like where that came from. What industry did you come from? Was that your upbringing? Did your parents teach you that type of discipline, or where did it come from?
Okay, so my background, my family comes from, I guess, Mexico. It's a lower income area. Yeah. So they kind of, came out here themselves. Your
parents?
Yeah, they left us back there, but...
Did they really?
Yeah, they left us with my aunt. Her name is Carmen. But
okay.
Yeah, they came out here, worked, made some money to get us all out here.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just made that opportunity for me. Grew up here.
It's incredible, dude. So how old were you when you came to the United States?
So I was about a year old, more or less.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't really remember it?
No.
No,
just photos.
Do you speak fluent Spanish?
It's okay. To a non-Spanish speaker, it sounds really good, but to maybe like another Spanish speaker, I start like struggling because they're really fast talkers.
Yeah. But you grew up speaking Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when the whole time I've known you, I don't think I've ever heard you speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And you don't even sound like you have a Hispanic accent even.
Yeah, no, I think just growing up, I kind of started speaking more English just because I think I was around just more English.
Did you grow up here in St. George?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up here in St. George also, all the way through, like I think I started second grade here and went all the way through high school.
What year was that, second grade?
For me, second grade was when I was 8 years old. That would have been 1992.
Okay, right on. Yeah, I was born 97. I was out here maybe 98, 99, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in middle school.
Right on. I've seen this place grow. It's grown a lot.
Amazing. But there's not a lot of Hispanic people here. Back when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, not a lot of Hispanic people. So I imagine, you didn't have a whole lot of practice outside of your family to speak Spanish.
Right, yeah.
And if you don't use it often, it becomes something that's is not quite as fluent, huh?
Yeah, kind of lose it a little bit,
But your parents, they come from blue collar, hardworking people, and they came over here to work their tails off to be able to provide a better opportunity for you and the rest of your siblings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's that's some of the stuff I was talking about. Like I came from a similar background. I'm not an immigrant, but my parents were hard workers, and they taught me the importance of hard work and discipline, showing up on time, having integrity. And those are things that without them like really sitting me down and teaching me those things, we learned by being exposed to it. Mm-hmm. And just the example of our parents.
Yeah.
And I got to see that firsthand when you came in here of what you've picked up from them and your discipline and your drive. And it's something that's very common, that like the immigrant mentality of just being hungry for something. Like I'm going to create an opportunity for myself out of thin air just by outworking everybody and doing extra shit. Mm-hmm. And we saw you do extra stuff in the beginning to be able to come from a place with very little experience in sales and timid. And like I had to like lean in to hear you most of the time when you first came on, because you're just very soft spoken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to see the transition from where you were to where you are now and the success that you've had and the drive that has helped propel you to this point is extremely impressive.
Thank you. Means a lot.
And yeah, absolutely. But leading up to when you came to work for JKR Windows, what kind of background did you have? Like what were you doing before that?
So I started off as a cook, I started off as a busser. That was my first job. And like I said, I was very shy, very timid, very antisocial. So that was kind of like a weird feeling, but I was still kind of doing the job. Yeah. People would try to talk to me and I would just be like, I don't know how to handle this conversation. Where to go with that? I was just lost every time someone tried to talk to me. But then they ended up putting me in as a cook position. Done mostly restaurants, and then I started getting into construction. Mm-hmm. Tried concrete. I wasn't about getting up at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah,
for that.
In the desert, you can only do concrete
to get there at 5
before the sun gets up. Yep.
So and then ended up getting into stucco, and that was more my speed.
Yeah,
because I've heard a lot of people say that stucco's not it for them. But I guess that one was more my speed.
But you enjoyed it. What was it about doing the stucco that you enjoyed?
I kind of enjoyed like the manual labor of it, of shoveling constantly and kind of pushing myself. It felt like a workout to me. Yeah, kind of way.
Yeah, so it's physically demanding.
Yeah.
Now, how much do you think it pushed you mentally though?
I think it pushed me pretty good because I was feeling like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. Because it was hauling wheelbarrows full of cement, then shoveling it up to where they wanted it, and then back and forth hauling.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
it's hard labor. Yeah. You live in the desert. It gets up into the triple digits, mm-hmm. and you don't show up, you don't get paid, so you've got to work through some pretty harsh conditions. Yeah. And I did construction here at St. George up until in my early 20s, and it would be hotter than hell in the summer. But then I remember like going and buying extra winter gear and doing coveralls and extra boots and gloves because it was extreme winters too.
Yeah.
It's freaking cold in the winter.
Out there in Hurricane, those winds are brutal. The winds, they're like icy and so they're like slicing you. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. There. So extremely challenging, both physically and mentally. But now how would you compare it to the physical and mental challenges of doing sales?
Definitely more mental challenge, more mentally exhausting. I can definitely keep telling myself to push my body physically because I know like in a way it's kind of making me stronger physically. Mm-hmm. But with mental, you just kind of start feeling down and you start doubting yourself. There's a lot of negative mindsets that start creeping in when it comes to when you're not having success.
Yeah. And how much did that play a role when you were doing construction? Did you ever have those type of thoughts doing construction?
No, I didn't. I was actually pretty good at just kind of working the hours and kind of day in, day out. It was it was a routine, and then I'd just kind of go to the gym after pre-workout, after working. It was more my thing instead of going to the gym in the morning. Kind of keep that workflow going.
Absolutely.
So,
well, when you got to get up as early as you do for construction, it makes it tough to do morning workouts. Right. But the thing that sticks out to me as I've came through a similar upbringing through construction and getting introduced to sales was when I did construction. I was a framer. I did some roofing. I did some concrete, but I mostly was a carpenter and a framer.
Okay.
And it really came easy to me. Like the basics of framing, once you understand them, for me, it was like, I can run a hammer, I can run a nail gun, I can read plans. Let's build some walls and see how fast we can do it and do it as good as we possibly can, pay attention to detail. But really outside of those things and being pushed mentally just because of the conditions, it's kind of monotonous. Like once you know what to do and you've done it long enough, you don't have to put much more thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I smoked cigarettes all day. I smoked weed all day, and I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't really have to like compute many things in my mind, and versus the mentality that you have to have for sales and the wherewithal and being present and being able to communicate and the energy that you have to have. I mean, it is night and day difference to be able to do sales versus construction. But as a result of the differences between the two, we get paid really well in sales.
Yeah, huge difference.
Because you could, I mean, at any point, if you decided it was too mentally tough, how easy do you think it would be for you to get back into construction?
Not hard enough.
I mean, you could,
Ask a friend.
you could walk onto any job site for any one of the industries, any one of them that you even have any experience in, and say, looking for a job. You're hired. In this market, you'd be hired in a heartbeat. It'd be so easy for you to go back there. So because of that, I think it's also relative to the pay that you can get in construction. The pay hasn't changed much. Like since I was a kid when I was doing construction to where it is now, it hasn't changed much.
No.
Like what's the most you think you could go back to and get paid doing stucco right now?
Stucco, with my experience, my God, when I left, I was getting like 17. I would probably get maybe $20.
So $20 an hour. But listen, dude, back in 2003, I was making $20 an hour as a framer. And that's 20 years. 20 years difference. And the wages are very similar.
Right.
But do you think like the cost of living has changed over that 20 years?
Yeah.
Like inflation is crazy.
Yeah.
$20 an hour back then, I thought I was doing pretty freaking good. And I was making more money than most of the people that I knew. But today, that's tough to live on, especially in a place like this, where rents are high. And, you know, like groceries, you take your trip to the grocery store and you just want to buy a couple things and a pack of meat and some cheese. And you're like $150. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, the opportunity that sales brings, if you're open to it, which you were at that time, and you took a step out of your comfort zone. I'm not sure how you got introduced to JKR Windows, but tell us a little bit about how that transition went. Like you were doing construction, you were making decent money, and you were comfortable. You had something that you knew that was consistent for you and you could show up every day. And then for whatever reason, you started to look at a different opportunity and you were wondering if there's more. And then you got exposed to JKR Windows in our culture. So explain a little bit about that, how that all went.
Okay. So I guess at the time, the biggest thing was that at the time I was in a relationship. She moved in with me. And so I kind of started wanting to be a provider and have her be like a traditional wife kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And stuff like that. And so I knew that as a construction worker, I wasn't going to be able to do that. I was already kind of, I made decent money, but I was already kind of slowly on a down slope of drowning in debt. But so I wanted to look out for search different jobs. I was considering asking a friend into was a mover. I was going to try that. Okay. So he gets tips or whatever. Yeah. I was thinking maybe I could get extra money from that. But I started going on Facebook at the time. They had like a job tab where you could post jobs and stuff.
Okay.
I don't think they have it anymore, but someone posted an ad on there for sales representative.
That's right.
For like 65, maybe I think it was 50 to 70K a year. And so I was like, that looks pretty good. I want to make 50 to 70K a year. I was all about, the opportunity to make it. If I could get the job, I don't know what it was. I didn't know it was going to be door to door. But I got an interview, met up with Adam. You remember him?
Yeah.
Showed me the window. It wasn't really an interview. It was kind of just like gave me the window presentation, and then he's like, "Man, if you really want to come back, we have meetings this day. He invited me to the lake on that day. So he's like, we're having an event. You can come through." And so I went to the event, went to the meetings, and then from there I was just pretty much sold.
Wow.
The window was awesome. It didn't expect at all what like a window would do.
Oh, I know, right?
Just thought up and down.
Because you've been in construction.
Yeah.
I was in construction too. And when I first saw that thing, it was
yeah.
like, I didn't know anything like this even existed.
Yeah, it literally blew my mind. What the heck? Like, window can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a cool tool for us to be able to use, not only for people looking at an opportunity to represent something they can be proud of, but then also like for us to be able to have that as a tool to show homeowners that this is what they're missing out on. This is the possibilities for them and energy efficiency and all the bells and whistles that you can have on windows. People just don't know it exists.
Right.
It's cool. So when you, what I think is interesting is there's like, if you wouldn't have been in that relationship, you may have never ended up here at JKR Windows.
Yeah.
Right. Because you just had started looking at things differently as a man and a provider. I want to make more money. I want to live a kind of lifestyle that I can be proud of and that my girl can be proud of what I'm doing and how much I'm bringing to the table and the value. Like we have this responsibility as men to bring as much value to the table as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're at a place in your life where you're comfortable and you're okay and you don't have that kind of drive to show up for people in a different way like you wanted to for your girlfriend, that's how people get stuck. Like you just get stuck in a job where you know that you've got more potential and you could possibly make more money, but you're comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just realized that, I really wanted just a little more for, not just for me, but for her. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. I stuck it out here, though. It was worth it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad that relationship led you to us because now it's been a little over 2 years and, your life has seriously been altered since that time coming from the stucco industry. And now you're one of the most well-known coordinators in JKR Windows. You're the most consistent. You've made as much money or more money than any one of our coordinators has that are currently with the company. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
And now you're on track to go to Costa Rica with us.
Yeah, I would love to. I don't think I can, though.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, you're on track to go to Costa Rica with us, but you still got some documentation stuff to work out to be able to do that.
Still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Need a good lawyer.
Well, let me know how I can help because I'd love to be able to take you on one of those trips, dude. You earned it.
Definitely. I want to be able to go just have a great time with everybody, too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're memorable. They're an incredible experience. And I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to go to those. We've got a couple other guys that just silly stuff has kept them from going. So if we can work on getting there and if there's a possibility, we ought to be working on it so you can come to one of these next ones.
I'm going to start to now with this opportunity you gave us. Definitely. It's made it a lot more accessible and a lot more doors.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about being able to take advantage of some opportunities requires you to have money.
Yeah.
And if you can't provide for yourself and create opportunities for yourself, how are you going to create opportunities or provide for anybody else? Right? Because I imagine that's still one of your goals is to be a provider.
Absolutely. Never forgot it.
And you want to be able to bring as much value and you would make an incredible father and a husband whenever that does end up happening. But now the way that you look at your income earning potential and what you're capable of as a person it will never be the same after leaving the construction industry and coming here.
Yeah, it's super grateful.
Right on, brother. Absolutely. Well, we're grateful to have examples like you within the company of success and consistency and the progress that you've made. It's That's what fires me up about this opportunity is the success stories that come from it. And you're not the only one. There's so many other cool success stories that we have here of people that came from a background that there's a lot of uncertainty, and they're following people and they look up to people that are an example of something that they think that they want, but it's just a little shinier version of what they already have.
Yeah.
And that this kind of puts a new perspective on what's possible. I was just doing the same thing. I was following my parents. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a general contractor, or I was going to be a mechanic. I just trying to shoot for a high level mechanic. It's like, that's all I had to go off of.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other examples in my life until I did. And then I was ready, and I was hungry, and I got to a point where I didn't want to tolerate those types of goals and that type of lifestyle anymore, because I knew that I was capable of more. So it's really cool to be a part of your story and be a part of that success, and to watch your evolution.
Thanks. Glad to be a part of it. Part of yours growing with the company and all that.
Yeah.
Glad I met you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So what's next for you? So I know you've got your sights set on like elite status and doing some big numbers within JKR Windows. And we've talked a little bit about investing, and you've had some other outside business ventures you've been working on. But like, what are some of your big goals over the next 5 years that you want to do to start creating wealth for yourself and to level yourself up as a leader and a communicator also? Okay.
I really struggle with reading, so that's something I just barely started getting into. I did read Amplify. I didn't finish it, but I got like a good way through the Amplify Influence when you gave it to me. And then I just barely started reading it again last night, and it was really like, I stopped at
book.
The worst part, like it was really getting
until it was starting to get dry.
Yeah. Well, I stopped at like when it was kind of like really starting to like make sense.
Oh, okay.
Like the framing and the Amplify formula and all that. But as far as like what I want to do, I do really want to get into real estate, of course, and just create passive income, have property. I do want to get more into like vehicles and like really nice cars.
Yeah.
Just falling in love with that right now.
That's awesome, dude.
Riding in them. So I really
what kind of car do you have right now?
I have two. I have one Hyundai Veloster. It's an R spec.
Yeah.
Manual transmission. Just having fun with that one.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that one I just put miles on it because it's a little more fuel efficient.
Yeah.
I also have a CLA 45, and that one's
CLA 45.
it's a Mercedes.
Mercedes?
Yeah.
When'd you get that one?
I got that one about, I want to say March. Around March.
Is it like a project car? You got some work to do to it?
No, it's a nice car. It's 2014 AMG. It's nice and clean.
Oh, dang.
I try to keep it pretty maintained, my cars and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that one I just kind of have fun with and drive it when I can on nights out,
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's in good condition too.
Yeah. I had one issue with like the sunroof, but that's it. I just got it fixed though. And then I took it to Mercedes, and then they were kind of like giving me like a huge quote, and I was like, whoa. And then went to another place, and they just gave me like, oh, that's an easy fix. I don't know why they do that.
No kidding. Yeah, that's cool though. But that's something that fires you up is the vehicles.
Yeah, it's definitely like, for me, it feels like getting a nicer car kind of feels like a level up kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like a new level tier of car kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you have payments on both of those?
I do have payments on both of them.
So that's the other thing that I've gone back and forth with.
Yeah.
Is getting a payment, overextending yourself versus having something that now fires you up. Like it drives you. It's like a carrot. You've got these bills that you have to pay that you've committed to, and now you've got to go deliver for yourself to be able to have enough to live a great lifestyle still and to be able to make those payments. Mm-hmm. So I used to look at it a little bit differently because I was protective of my people and I want them to do smart things. But I think for some people, does that drive you? Like when you've got stuff to go after and you've got responsibilities, now you're going to go push and do extra?
Yeah, it does help me kind of get out there a little bit. It also kind of helps me I also use the money I make to kind of put it back into that so I can kind of feel like I'm low on it, even though I'm kind of ahead.
Yeah.
I just having a lower bank account kind of drive me a bit, but I was still trying to like save money for taxes and stuff like that. 'Cause I know at the end of the year, that's going to be a big one, especially with the amount of money we're going to be making. That's going to be more taxes. Okay, so I'm just trying to be conscious of that. Try to put more into my car so I'm not paying so much interest, and then kind of keeping it kind of low so I could feel like I'm kind of, you know, at that point where like I might be struggling even though I'm kind of ahead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's all.
I kind of, I guess, keep myself in like that uncomfortable position.
Absolutely. Yep. And you hear a lot of successful people talk about it like that. And whether it's real or perceived, it's still just a psychological game that you got to play on yourself. Even if you just put the money into an account that you can't touch, so it just seems like this is how much that you have, so you can play that psychological game on yourself. It's the same concept we were talking about. It's just like you got to have something that can drive you, that gets you fired up, that keeps you pushing, and it's different for everybody. So now, as far as your goals with sales and your effectiveness as a closer and leveling up in leadership, I know you've done a ton of mentoring for JKR Windows over the past year as well. What do you do, and what are some of your goals in those areas to help you continue to level up?
What do I do? I kind of just stick to the basics of working the hours, doing the best that I can. Trying not to be negative, pretty much. You know, that's the core values, the what's it called? The 5 things.
That team expectations
and all that.
Yeah.
Those are pretty critical to expectations. If you just follow those, you'll do pretty good. Work the hours.
So would you say, I was just going to say that I think that as you were saying that, it makes a lot of sense why you've had so much success and why you're so consistent. Is since day one, you've been taking notes and you've been very coachable, and we've got a proven system. We know it works, and you've just trusted in the system and just executed, and you follow the team expectations. You understand what the core values are of the company and how those apply to you. And then, constantly reevaluating your mindset and how you show up with your attitude and the way that you talk to yourself and how you talk to other people. And we've all got room for improvement there. But I think it's important for you to recognize that as much as you still have to work on, and you recognize that, and I can hear it when you talk about it, you've still come a long ways. And you've developed your mind to a place where you can still go out and do those things on a daily basis and do them at a high level. And then, of course, there's always room to improve. Like the negative thoughts, the self-sabotage, the uncertainty, that's never going to go away. You just get better and better at dealing with it and recognizing it and being aware when it happens and being able to, it's not necessarily even like having to get rid of it. You just tune it out. It's still there. You just tune it out, and that ain't going to affect me. I'm going to focus on these things that are going to drive me forward. They're going to produce results. And any of these types of thoughts are going to do the opposite. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely been in a situation where I feel it was definitely, I take responsibility on my part, because he was one of my recruits, someone I brought in. Yeah. We were on a pod, and I just wasn't doing very well. So, when you're not having success, you start to have doubts, the negativities.
And you start to project a a little bit onto other people.
Project it a little bit. And so he would ride with me, and that's why I feel like it was my responsibility.
Really?
Because I wasn't producing, I was projecting negativity, and he was kind of feeding off of it. And so, definitely I noticed how negative I was being after the fact.
Sure.
Fortunately.
Sure.
So I definitely keep that in mind.
Great learning experience of it. Yeah, that's great awareness. Because there's also the opposite side of the coin where some people would have never been able to recover from that. It would have dominoed, and they would have played the blame game, and it's everybody else's fault, and it's the customer, it's the area, and this bullshit doesn't work. And you could have spiraled out of control. And not only did your friend lose out on an opportunity, but you did also. But because of your awareness And after the fact, it doesn't matter. Like everything happens for a reason. Without that happening in your life, you wouldn't have had that new awareness. Like you wouldn't be talking about the negativity and all this doubt that you have in your head the way that you do right now if you hadn't gone through those challenges.
Right.
There's another book that you should read that I think you would really like.
Okay.
It's called The Obstacle is the Way.
Okay. I have to write that.
So it's on our reading list here in the office. It's by Ryan Holiday. And it essentially is the same thing we were just talking about. Like the obstacle for you to be able to succeed at a high level, every obstacle that you run into is an integral part of you leveling up. Because if it's just smooth sailing and everything's easy and you're living a challenge-free life, how many opportunities do you feel like you're going to have to grow?
Not very many. Fine.
Like none. There's none. So the reason why I feel like I've had as much success as I have, and the reason that you've had as much success as you have, is because you not only recognize the challenges and take your lessons from them, but you embrace them. And you just take them head on. You've got to take them head on. It's not going to do you any good to avoid them because you're avoiding your opportunity to grow.
Right.
So all of those challenges, they stick out and they're memorable and they're emotional. I've got the same ones. Like I burned so many fucking people, and not just by being negative, but by also like putting too much pressure on people and having high expectations and not knowing how to communicate those in a very tactful way. But every single one of those was a great experience for me because I never wanted to make anybody feel like that again. Like never wanted that outcome. I never wanted to make another person feel like that.
Totally related.
But then you can't, in those moments, you're just doing your thing and you're reacting and you're emotional and you don't have the awareness yet. And you can either take a lesson from it or you can continue down that same path and just blame and go keep doing the same shit. But the difference in people that become successful and that accomplish great things are they recognize each one of those and they're aware of how they make people feel and the lesson that was like offered up. This was a lesson for me that was tough, but it was offered up in this way and it sucked. But I'm going to take it for what it's worth, learn my lesson. I'm never going to freaking do that again.
Right.
Because it felt terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get better. And every time I have one of these opportunities, I'm going to embrace it. I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm going to take 100% responsibility because I want to get better.
I love accountability. Every time something happens, I just try to figure out like, oh man, that's got to be my fault. Like, I don't want to point any fingers on anyone for any.
That's so good. That's so good, dude. Because this book that you're reading, the Amplify, Rene Rodriguez, a good friend of mine, and he's got some incredible things in there when it comes to communication and leadership and sales and storytelling. But outside of that, like, have you ever read any other books?
So Blake, he did get us on. I always get super into it in the beginning, and then I start to kind of lose my consistency with reading.
Was it the Atomic Habits?
Yes. That one.
Yeah.
And then Drake got us on to David Goggins. That one was pretty crazy.
Was it Can't Hurt Me, the first one?
Yeah, that one was pretty crazy. Got like about halfway every time, but
yeah. Well, it's a good step in the right direction. And the reason I bring that up is because you have some of these things just from your upbringing and some of your intuition that have set you up for success. Like you talk about success principles as if you've read a dozen books about it. But some people just have it ingrained in them. Like your drive as an immigrant and the way that your family was raised up has instilled some of these things in you. It's amazing how well positioned you are for success. Because the number one success principle is take 100% responsibility. And it's talked about in dozens and dozens of books. And there's a book called The Success Principles, that the number one success principle out of 67 is take 100% responsibility. So that's instilled in you, and you are just with that one skill set and that one piece of awareness that you have with yourself and what drives you will lead you to do incredible things.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to life.
Right on, dude. Well, you're doing life pretty damn good right now. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Zeke.
I'm honored to get to work with you and be a part of your success story. And just another cool example of the culture that we have here at JKR Windows, the system, and the opportunity that we've created for so many people coming from a background just like I came from in construction and being a mechanic, to being able to have a different perspective on what's possible for us in the way that we provide and we earn income. So thank you guys so much for checking in for another episode of Just Real Quick. If you guys haven't already, please like and subscribe to the podcast. And we're on Spotify and iHeartRadio and YouTube, everywhere you can find a podcast. We've got the JKR Windows Just Real Quick podcast. And if you know somebody that could benefit from this, whether they're in sales or door-to-door, the window industry, or it's just a message you think that somebody needs to hear, copy the link, send it out. The more people we can get this in front of, the better, to share our stories and share the little tidbits about mindset and sales and leadership and communication, just life in general. So thank you guys so much for checking in. Until next time, we're out of here.